Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lara from Pure Elliott Wave with your free update for Bitcoin, Ethereum and XRP. I'm recording this week from Panama City. I love this place. It's so much fun. Just here for a week. Bitcoin's having a down day today, so when it does that, it's a good idea to step back and remember the bigger picture. So let's have a look at the monthly chart. This is the entire price history of Bitcoin. I had a comment recently on the YouTube channel scoffing at my suggestion that the low of 11th of September 2023 could possibly remain intact for years to come because crypto, I don't know what that means, I don't know what that person thinks crypto is doing, but if you look at the monthly chart, it's very obviously in an upward trend. There's a series of higher highs, there's a series of higher lows. That's your basic definition of an upward trend, and that remains intact so far. In order for that pattern of higher highs and higher lows to be broken, we'd need to see a lower low below the last low prior to the final high. So that would be the low of February 2020 at just over 4,000. So if Bitcoin made a lower low below this point, then that pattern of higher highs and higher lows would then be broken. And if that happens, then you can say with reasonable confidence that the pattern has been broken and the trend has changed. While these higher lows remain intact, you have to assume, or you would be wisest to assume, that the trend remains the same, upward, until proven otherwise. I expect it's extremely likely for the low of October 2022, just over 15,500, just under 15,600, is very likely to remain intact for years to come. I'm not as confident for the 11th of September 2023 low, but I've got some confidence that that low is likely to remain intact for years to come. These lows back here for October 2011, $1.99, January 2014, $91, and so on, November 2018, February 2020, October 2022, just under 16,000. Those lows have remained intact. These ones here for years. So it is entirely possible that we could have another low here that may remain intact for years to come. This chart is on a semi-log scale, so it doesn't show you how extreme the volatility is of this market. But even on a semi-log scale, you can still see parabolic growth curves. For a market to exhibit that on a semi-log scale, it is very, very extreme. When I take the semi-log scale off and we view this market on an arithmetic scale, you can see how these early movements look essentially flat, and then price absolutely explodes with exponential growth up to the last all-time high in October 2021. This is an extremely volatile market. With an eye on the bigger picture for Bitcoin, let's look at the weekly technicals today. Here's the all-time high in November 2021, just under 69,000. This last low down here in November 2022, just under 16,000, I expect is likely to remain intact for years to come. I'm also not as confident, but I'm reasonably confident now that the 11th of September may also remain intact for years to come. At this low of November 2022, we have two bullish candlestick patterns on the weekly chart. This is a hammer candlestick, and this is a bullish engulfing candlestick pattern. The bullish engulfing doesn't have push from volume, but it is an engulfing pattern. We don't always see push from volume immediately off those prior sustained lows, and I've got a very careful study of those. So volume spiked toward the low and then saw a decline at the low. This is the volume bar for the bullish engulfing candlestick pattern. Since then, we start to now see some decent push from volume pushing price higher. Lately, price has been moving essentially sideways and volume has really fallen off. This crypto compare data, I'm a little bit suspicious of this volume, but when I look at other data sources, we do see light volume compared to previously. It's not this extreme. While price is moving sideways, on balance volume is in a really small, tightly defined range. A breakout of this range would give us a signal. So I'll be keeping my eye on that over coming weeks. ADX is declining. It's getting to quite low levels. The DX lines are whipsawing. This is setting itself up for a strong signal. If the ADX line gets below 15 and then turns back up and rises and remains below both DX lines, that'll be the strongest signal ADX can give. It'll tell us there's a new trend in a very early stage, and whichever DX line is on top at that point will tell us the direction of the trend. So I'll be watching this one on the weekly chart with great interest over coming weeks. When ADX tells us there's no clear trend, I use a model of stochastics plus support and resistance. Stochastics almost reached oversold. It's turning upward now, moving higher through neutral, so let's expect that price is going to bounce up off support and continue higher until price reaches resistance and stochastics reaches overbought about the same time. That model would expect overall an upward swing from price to resistance probably about 31, but if it broke through that, next resistance above about 35,000. For the very short term on the daily chart, I'm slightly adjusting my trend line from the pennant pattern. The target remains the same, the target using the measured rule from the flagpole of the pennant, adding that to the breakout point still gives us a target about 35.28. Price continues to find strong support about 27,400. It looks like that's likely to continue, and when it's done consolidating, we'll look for a breakout. It may be able to slice through resistance next time it reaches just below 29,000. This is a test of that resistance here. So next time it gets up there, if it closes above resistance here, then look for next resistance about 29,750. If it can close above that, next resistance 35.28. Those are my targets from the inverted head and shoulders and the pennant pattern. For Ethereum, stepping back and looking at an Elliott Wave count on the monthly chart, you can see this analysis is extremely bullish. From the start of Ethereum's price history, I have a beautiful looking 5-wave impulse up here. I'll label that cycle wave 1. And over here, cycle wave 2, a double zigzag. When 2 ends, 3 begins, and it may only subdivide as an impulse. Cycle 3 and 4 can't be over here because if this is 4, it would be in what's wave 1 price territory. So we move the degree of labeling down. Cycle 3 must be incomplete, and this is only primary 1 and 2 within an extending third wave for cycle 3. Extremely common for third waves for cryptocurrencies to extend. In fact, they almost always do. Particularly a third wave within a third wave, so I'll expect primary 3 within cycle 3 to be a really long extension. Within it, no second wave correction may make a new low below its start, below 883.48. Ethereum's having quite a strong downward session so far. It's nearly 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the time I'm recording this, so we don't know where the session is going to close, but I expect it's most likely to find support at 1550, and I'm still expecting for Ethereum the low of 11th of September 2023 is likely, not certain, but more likely than not to remain intact. Now, it could be breached and the bigger picture would remain the same, but there is some technical evidence that this low for 11th of September is going to remain intact, so let's look at that real quick. There's a bullish candlestick pattern off the low. It didn't have push from volume, but we do have some increase in volume as price moves up off that low, and now overall price is falling and overall volume is declining, but for the short term, a little bit of a push from volume. At the low of the 11th of September, RSI had reached reasonably deeply oversold, and then it exhibited double bullish divergence with price. Likewise, money flow reached oversold and exhibited double bullish divergence with price. The downward trend had reached very extreme. It was above both DX lines and above 45. So given the context of a very extreme downward trend, bullish divergence after price and money flow both reached oversold, we give the bullish piercing pattern on the 11th of September a lot of weight. Looking at past sustained lows for Ethereum, this is one of the strongest looks I can see compared to past lows that have been sustained for years. So it's more likely than not that 11th of September will remain intact, but it's not certain. None of this is certain. This is all a balance of probability. But even if this low is breached, when you look at the bigger picture, it doesn't mean the bull market is over, and it doesn't mean it has to continue lower. It just means that the low, the most recent low, is not quite yet in. Likewise, for XRP, my Elliott Wave count at the monthly chart level with the full data of the entire price history of XRP is very bullish. Cycle wave 1 and 2, cycle wave 3 very likely to extend within that, primary 1 and 2 likely to be complete, and primary 3 within cycle 3 in its very early stages. My target for XRP is $8.10, and that may last, if it lasts 3 years, it may end in June 2025. Primary 2 if it were to continue any lower, and it could, but that would give the wave count poor proportion. If it does continue, it may not move beyond the start of 1, below 0.1138. I don't expect that low to be breached for this wave count. If it's over here, then primary 1 has lasted a year, primary 2 has lasted a year and 2 months. If primary 2 were to continue, it would be out of proportion to cycle wave 2 1 degree higher. Now it's possible because the proportion wouldn't actually be too bad, but it wouldn't have as good a look as seeing it over here. XRP is also moving lower today, but I expect strong support for XRP at 0.4875. I expect after this consolidation between resistance of 55 and support 0.4875, I expect the breakout to most likely be upward after this last test of support. A little bit of an increase from volume today, but overall volume is declining as price is falling. ADX is still slightly increasing, telling us there's still an upward trend. The ADX line is now above both DX lines, so the trend is extreme, but a very, very, very long way to go before it gets as extreme as it can for this market. RSI is still neutral, a long way from overbought, a long way from as deeply overbought as it can get for this market. Money flow also neutral, a long, long way to go before these indicators indicate together a very extreme trend in danger of reversing. These indicators are still indicating a trend in a relatively early stage, despite ADX being above both DX lines today. That's it from me today with your update for Bitcoin, Ethereum and XRP from Panama City, and I hope everyone had an awesome weekend.